Greetings, everybody. We're excited today here in the Blue Suede Connection studios because we have on the phone with us today the one and only Mr. Bill Cherry.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, Bill.
We are happy to talk to you, brother, and we love all you guys. We've had several of your brothers. I told you in our little chat there on the phone. And all of you guys really are Elvis fans, and I know that's important for you to let people know that, right?
Yeah.
Most definitely. You know, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, you know, if I wasn't an Elvis fan. I've been an Elvis fan. I mean, ever since I can actually remember. You know, my mother loved Elvis, and whenever he was on television, I remember her getting out the old TV guides. You know what I mean? Those are a thing of the past. She'd get out the TV guide and say, "Oh, well, Elvis is going to be on, Tuesday night at 6:30. You want to watch Elvis with me?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, you know." And we had like maybe 5 Elvis albums. You know, like I remember How Great Thou Art, Speedway, and some of the cheaper Elvis albums, which was
the Pickwicks,
the Pickwick albums. You know, Separate Ways and Come On Everybody, and stuff like that.
That's what I grew up with too. Those early ones. What was your favorite Pickwick album, Bill?
You know, I have to say it was probably Let's Be Friends album.
I knew it. I told you this. This is my twin brother from a different mother. I'm telling you.
But those albums were affordable to us kids. You know, that was the thing.
I think those albums were $1 or something.
Yeah, they were awesome
back in the day.
It was a battle for me, Bill, every week to go over to Two Guys department store with my allowance. I had to fight. Do I want an Elvis album or Amigo action figure? And sometimes Planet of the Apes would win. Sometimes Elvis would win. But it was always a battle.
Oh man!
I'll tell you what. I was a Planet of the Apes fan as well. And I'm surprised that I don't have like a humpback today, because when I was a kid, I would play Planet of the Apes and I'd run around the yard trying to hunch over like a monkey and run around like Planet of the Apes.
I love it. Me too. I used to do the walk. I had all the guns. I had all the toys, the lunchbox. I had it all.
Oh my gosh.
So let's go back to the beginning. Now, before we get too much fun talk here, because I'm going to give Bill a little quiz later, and just to see his one-word answers
Bill.
to these.
That's always scary.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Always scary.
But when I say our lives were parallel, I grew up in a Pentecostal church. I grew up in one of those churches where they'd run up and down the aisles, up the wall, and shouting crazy languages that I didn't understand. It traumatized me growing up.
It traumatized you.
It did. But you also were a church kid, right? Your dad?
Most definitely. I was raised in a Pentecostal church. In my earliest memories, my dad was the deacon, and then he took over being the pastor of Pentecostal church. So all my life, I was raised, in the Pentecostal church. So now, and I'm sure most of your listeners do that. The Pentecost is very, they're active in the church. And like you said, they'll if the Spirit hits them, they'll jump up, they'll run around. They'll speak in tongues. They will. Now, let's not get it confused. There was nobody grabbing snakes and playing
no.
like that.
No.
But I'll tell you, it was never a dull moment.
It's good memories, and it sets your morals. It really does. Growing up,
well, it does. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would be willing to bet, Bill, that whenever you do "How Great Thou Art" on stage, that's you expressing yourself, like Elvis.
It's deeply rooted. It's not just singing a song.
Yeah.
It's the roots are deep.
I got to tell you, Bill, we only got to meet you briefly in Toronto, but we did get
Toronto,
to
honey. Niagara Falls.
I said Toronto. In Niagara Falls. I'm sorry about that, Canada.
He doesn't know where he is half the time.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's all those drugs I didn't.
I don't either. It's another thing we have in common.
It's all the drugs I did in Vietnam. I can't help it.
And he's kidding, because he was not old enough to be in Vietnam.
But we enjoyed every show there immensely, and we made some great friends, throughout the Elvi crowd, all your brothers, and we still talk to many of them. Right. But the one show that TL and I made sure we wanted to see, because, like I said, we'd seen you on YouTube, and we always said, we said, he's really good. But when you came out, TL, tell him how we felt.
Yeah, so we saw the show you did for the 77. You came out in the sundial suit and you did Elvis's 77 set. I was completely rooted to my seat. I mean, if I had to pee, I would have peed myself, because I would not have gotten up and gone to the bathroom. I'll put it to you that way. I loved it because, as a 70s kid, I came to Elvis in the 70s. So those final years were something that I fell in love with. And you were doing that, and you were doing it so to the T. I mean, down to his sense of humor. The suit was awesome. I was like, this is authentic. This is not you putting, I mean, obviously you're there and you have your own sense of humor, which is very similar to Elvis's, so it's easy to follow.
And you incorporate that.
Yeah, but you had, I mean, there were just little things you were doing that a real fan is picking up on. And I was like, oh my God, I love this.
I told Tony when we walked out the door, I said, that was the highlight of the shows for us right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, you know, I really, that means a lot to me. You know what I mean? Because, you know, as you know, I've said, and everyone knows, you know, that knows me, that, you know, I started doing what I'm doing out of the love of Elvis Presley. It was not to uplift myself. It was not to make a name for myself, because I very much downplay it whenever I'm not on the stage, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember watching that concert on television when he passed in August. They aired it in October.
Yeah.
And when I first watched it, now going back in time, you know, I had the poster from Hawaii on the wall. We watched the movies and things like that, and had the records. But I wasn't aware of Elvis's physical condition in '77. You know, and I happened to be sitting in front of the television when the news broadcast came across. It said, you know, Elvis Presley, you know, dead at 42. And I was in disbelief. I had some kind of a weird thing when I was a kid. Like, you know, I would watch the movies and watch TV with my parents and mostly my mother. And I always was curious, is he still alive? Is this actor still alive?
Yeah,
and I don't know why I was obsessed with that. But I was always happy to hear when we watched an Elvis movie, I said, is he still alive? And she said, yeah, he's still alive. And I remember being happy about that, right?
Yeah,
and so there I am sitting in front of the TV, and this comes across, and I was like, Did I really just hear? Did he just die?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, I told my mother and I called my aunt. My whole family was kind of Elvis Presley fans. They were country music fans and Elvis fans. And I called my aunt. Her name was Evelyn, and she answered the phone. And I said, Evelyn, Elvis just died. And she said, you know what? She said, I don't think that's funny. And she hung up on me. And so I called her back. And I guess because I was a bit of a prankster when I was a kid, and she, you know, she said that wasn't funny. But I called her back, and I said, "No, I'm not playing." I said, "Turn the news on. Elvis just died."
Oh my gosh!
So
I was doing the same thing, watching TV at the time, but I thought it was Vernon that they were talking about at first.
I was lying on the floor at my grandmother's house, eating my bowl of Captain Crunch cereal, watching watching Truth or Consequences with Bob Barker.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this, Dan?
I'm ready. No, don't tell me.
I was sitting in front of the TV, and I just got home from school, and I was watching the Munsters. And I was eating a bowl of Cocoa Puff cereal.
Oh my gosh, you guys!
I told you, my twin brother from a different mother.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was very excited to see the concert, right? And I remember the little television clips, commercials that they was going to show it, but they was only giving you little tidbits of it, right? So I had one of these little 35 millimeter cameras, and I was like, I got the bright idea. I'm going to sit in front of the TV and film it with my little 33 millimeter camera. Of course, I had no sound. And so when they first aired it, I watched it through that little lens of that little camera. And I don't know whatever happened to the film footage that I took, but I filmed it. And I have to tell you, you know, I was a bit in disbelief that was even him. Certain ways he would look and smile. I mean, there was no mistake. That's Elvis, you know. And but I was shocked at his appearance. And in all honesty, I think that the cameras were not nice to him.
No.
They took the worst angles.
Sure.
And why would they get up in somebody's face so close? You know, knowing that they wasn't in good health or whatever. I mean, it just to me it was kind of cruel, you know, how they did it.
So Bill, are you on the anti or pro release that concert?
Oh, I am pro release it. Because you know, to me, in bad health or not, that is still Elvis Presley.
And
to me, I want to know and see everything, to the end, because you know what? I think there's a lesson to be learned there,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
Absolutely.
and so, here's just like, the guys that wrote the book, and everything. And Sonny West said, here's a guy who had it all in the palm of his hand and started out with it that way. And, the things that he did, the drugs and everything, I mean, it took it away from him. He was no longer,
Right.
at 42, that's a young man.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you still got the Rolling Stones going today.
Oh, I know.
Tom Jones is still going today.
Oh,
Paul McCartney.
every time I
And
see
Paul
Tom
McCartney,
Jones,
it's unbelievable, and imagine the stories that Elvis could have told, but it's all, things happen for a reason, and I wonder, if Elvis had lived as long as Tom Jones, when his time come, would he be as legendary? Would he be as memorable?
Right.
There is something about someone dying at an early age.
yeah, that's true.
There is some truth to that, and so and Elvis left so much that, as far as I think, because I've done a lot of thought into all of this, and why is it still so big? Why is it getting bigger? How's it happening? To me personally, I feel the reason is because Elvis is whoever you want him to be. When you look at that picture, whether it's on your mantle, hanging in the bedroom, on a poster, he's whoever you want him to be.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
TL was her first boyfriend.
Yeah.
To me, it was my
Right.
first superhero. It was
Sure.
you
Sure.
know.
But he's whoever you want him to be, because it was very smart, very smart. You
Mm-hmm.
never seen Elvis on talk shows. You never seen Elvis talking about his personal business.
Nope.
Thank God there was no social media at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody is so willing to say whatever they want to feel about whatever, and we've seen a lot of things that's happened because of people that do that. They've fallen from grace. Elvis was very smart, even in '72 in the interview, when they asked him about the war and Vietnam and blah blah blah. What did he say? I just didn't keep those views to myself. I'm an entertainer.
Yeah,
I'd rather not
yep.
say.
How smart
100%,
was that?
100%.
Yeah.
How smart was that?
Yeah.
So Elvis had a mystique about him, right? You didn't really know much about him. I mean, you was lucky enough to find out if he was coming in concert and able to get a ticket, because he was in and out.
For $15.
Before the music stopped playing,
I
Elvis
did-
has left the building.
I did hear one time though that he did want to he thought it would be funny to be on the laugh-in. Did you ever hear that story where he would love
Yeah.
to be on the bike and fall over and say "suck it to me"?
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
Well, he loved comedy, right? He loved
Yeah.
comedy.
Yeah.
He would have been
But,
good at that.
Yeah, it's but again, he was very well protected. The image was protected, and like Elvis said in Madison Square Garden interview, the image is one thing, the human being is another.
Yeah.
Well, how close is the man to the image? It's hard to live up to the image, and that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
Elvis is whoever you want him to be. You can look at the picture, and say, "Wow, what a Christian young boy there!" And those gospel albums, we all love him.
Yeah.
God bless
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And then the next guy be like, "Well, that's the king of rock and roll right there, man." So everyone has a different opinion, and therefore, and one thing's for sure, we never knew him, right? We never knew him. So he's whoever you want him to be, and all you have is the music and very little footage of interviews with him.
That's
so.
Yeah.
well said.
And
Bill.
of course, a lot of books to read.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
To decipher through.
So, are you excited about the new big
don't
movie
know.
that's coming out? We don't know much about it, but
Baz, yeah.
I'm excited if it's just footage of Elvis. And it's very strange because people say, "Well, how can you say you're a purist as an Elvis fan, but yet you do Elvis?"
right.
So I think. Well, let me address that real quick. I think as tribute artists that are fans. Fan-based tribute artists, not guys that just jump on the boat and say, "Okay, I'm going to sing these songs and I'm going to make some money and I'm going to get some girls and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that." I'm talking about at the core
Right.
guys that do Elvis that are fans, right? We are all on the same team, and that is to keep the memory of Elvis alive for other fans, right?
Right.
The difference between the guys that put on the suits and the people in the audience is we put on the suits, but we're just like the other Elvis fans, right? And to me personally, it's great to go to tribute shows. It's great to see a live performance. because I mean, one thing's for sure, you'll never see Elvis Presley again.
Right.
And this is all that we have left now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why we do the show, Bill. When we started Blue Suede Connection, we did it for fun because we love Elvis, and, it was a great thing just for TL and I to get together and do this because we both love Elvis. If there hadn't been an Elvis, we never would have met.
Correct.
So when we started doing Blue Suede Connection, that's all it was about, and it still is to this day. Him, and we love what he gave us. So that's why we do it. Exactly why you do it.
Correct. And so, like I said, I never got into it. My thought wasn't making money. My thought wasn't anything like that. My thought was being able to step on a stage in front of an audience and for that hour or whatever it is, be my hero. Be the guy that I loved and just everything about him, to play that part. Basically, it gave me the courage to get on stage and be in front of people, because all I'm trying to do is emulate something that I saw, or something that on the records. I never tried to. I see no desire to overdo it. I see no reason to recreate it or reinvent it. I think Elvis did a great job. I mean, it's 50 years after his death and he's still going, right?
Oh yeah.
I see no need to change his music. I see no need to change his history to attract a different audience, or to keep the money machine going, if I can say that.
Yeah, sure.
There's no need to rewrite Elvis history.
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you, and this is just the way that I feel about it personally. And, I mean, like I said, the movie, it's a great movie. It's great entertainment. If you're into that. I'm more into documentary type things.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Most fans are.
Fictional type of thing.
Let me ask you, Bill, what does the love from that stage feel like if you're thinking about being up there representing your hero, and you realize you've probably been in some really big venues, maybe even bigger than Elvis ever got to be in. But what does that love that you figure that he once felt, what does it feel like?
I'll tell you, and I've been doing it, good Lord, since the late '80s. But on a professional level, since I won the competition in 2009, and I was just a baby at the time. But
you're funny.
But I'll tell you what blows my mind is I have been to places that Elvis never got to go to, representing Elvis.
Right.
And that's mind blowing to me. There's such a love and desire worldwide, global, for Elvis Presley, and so a lot of tribute guys travel the world doing it. So we're world travelers if we're lucky enough to reach that. That level of it, and to be able to walk out on a stage and hear that love and feel it, it's an uplifting excitement. I mean, you feel it from within your chest.
Yeah,
I bet. And it just explodes within your chest to feel the love and the adoration. But we can't get confused. Now Dan knows it to be true, right? He knows religion. He was brought up in it. I was too. The Elvis world, whether people want to admit it or not, and Elvis wouldn't like it, I'm sure, but it's very cultish. It's almost religious.
Yeah, it's true.
It brings the world together. People from all over the world. It brings them together that never would have met. It brings new friends that you never would have known, all through Elvis Presley, right?
Right.
And so if you look at it in this way, and I only look at it in this way because I was raised in church like Dan, and so if the tribute artists are the ministers delivering the message, which is music to the fans, right? And the people cry, they laugh, they enjoy it, they have a great time. And that's what we are. We are keepers of the flame.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Whenever we get into self, and Dan knows what I'm talking about, ministers get into self and they forget about the Godhead.
Oh yeah.
Now you're in the wrong lane.
Yep.
Now you're doing it for self.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Self-gratification, self-uplifting, and so that's where we have issues. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's all in fun. And it's all should be for Elvis Presley, but I do think that you have fans of ETAs.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I've seen that. Where they've got one of your shirts on or something. Yeah, I've seen that.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but let's not forget the whole reason for the season. It's Elvis Presley, right?
Yeah.
And so, but when you have a division in the fan bases Whereas to, certain people, I don't like that guy, or I don't like this and I don't like that. I like this guy. It's basically, well, aren't we all on the same team? You know what I mean? Aren't we all trying to,
Exactly.
keep the memory of Elvis Presley alive?
Yeah.
And I'm even talking about myself. If someone has a tattoo of my face on their body, I'm thinking, well, why isn't it Elvis' face on
Yeah,
their body?
yeah.
Right.
And you know that
that makes sense in a weird
yeah.
way, But it's a. I think what's happened is things just kind of went in a direction, whereas it's ETAs against Elvis.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and that
That's what
and
I was just
that is
gonna
a
say.
division in the fan base, which is, wrong in every way.
That's horrible. Yeah.
There has to be a medium where everyone comes together, and where as the purist Elvis fans and the people that enjoy the ETA shows can come together. Again, the purists probably don't want to see an ETA or something like that.
Well, they haven't
I
seen
think
the right
reason
one.
for that is probably due to media. The media has painted an ugly picture of ETAs, or impersonators, if you will.
Yeah.
And that there are types like that do exist. You know what I mean?
Oh, shoot, Bill, you go on YouTube. I know you're aware of this, and you see these. I mean, carnival clowns and jumpsuits.
I was going to say, be nice.
People that have no reason to be singing or trying to do that. It's embarrassing.
Correct.
But then they have a following.
Yeah, I don't get it.
And I'm thinking, who are these 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people following?
Well, I think that again, it's the media that turned Elvis into a joke.
Yeah.
It's people that walk around in Las Vegas in Halloween costumes with huge pompadour wigs and wearing tennis shoes and have a pillow stuffed in the front of their Halloween costume, and they're trying to get a picture with you for $5.
I get so tired of hearing about fat Elvis. He wasn't fat either. That's
correct.
ridiculous.
Correct. Elvis never was as big as and let me make this clear too. So I think that there's a little bit of Elvis in all of us, right? We all grew up, most of us anyway, in the era, at least the ones that did.
Yes.
So whatever, is thrown into the cake at the time of mixing, and when it bakes, it's still in there somewhere. So there's a little bit of Elvis in all of us. So, and this is my take on it. Everybody has their right to pay tribute to Elvis Presley and sing the songs and this and that. But where you draw the line is, if you weigh, and I'm just going to throw a number out there, if you weigh 450 pounds, don't put on a spandex suit.
No.
And because now you're a mockery, right?
Yeah.
If you love Elvis Presley as a fan, then put on a nice two-piece suit, and don't try to impersonate Elvis on stage or give off that persona. Because you're a mockery to Elvis Presley. Because if you just dress nicely and the people know, I'm not impersonating Elvis Presley. This is a tribute. I love the man, and I like to sing his songs, and we hope you enjoy it. Right?
Yeah.
You do it right, Bill, because like we said, when we watched your show, we saw what we were supposed to see, what we wanted to see.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you knew the balance. You knew exactly what you were doing up there. It was so good.
Oh yeah, I believe me. I studied it over and over and over, and because I love it. I love it. And one of the reasons why I decided to do the like the Final Curtain shows or the Sundial shows is because I didn't really see anybody doing it.
There's not. No.
Great Graceland really doesn't want that. They want to pretend it didn't happen. They want to stop at a Lower from Hawaii.
I think it's crazy.
But I mean, Elvis went beyond that.
Right.
Elvis's voice was amazing. I mean, I never heard it so strong, and again, it's unfair, I think, to disregard Elvis, after 1973. Elvis is Elvis, and if you really love him, if you're a fan of him, you're going to love him regardless. You're not going to walk away because he put on a pound or two or whatever, or forgot the words to a song. And I think there's a lot of fans that still stuck by his side to the very end.
Yes.
So
and which is a good thing.
Yeah, but, absolutely. That forgetting of lyrics thing too. I mean, he made a joke out of that. He had that kind of sense of humor.
Why sure?
I mean, who knows how true it was or how much he'd really forgotten. But at that point, he's more into just making fun of himself.
Yeah.
And you know what? it is? It's when the media, the tabloids, have you on the covers and they're talking bad about you. They put a bad picture, and I've seen them. When Elvis was still alive. They put a picture of him, not a good picture, and then the caption across the top of the National Enquirer is talking about, weight loss and things like that,
Yeah.
which has nothing to do with the photo of Elvis, but
This
they
is
put
crazy.
that above it. They wasn't nice to him. They tried to really rip him apart. And you know what? And sometimes the world is like that. Somebody that is kind, giving, and loving, and they look for the crack in the armor.
Yeah, they're coming for you. Yeah,
they're coming for you. They look for the crack in the armor, and unfortunately, Elvis's health went downhill, and they chewed him up.
I think he's getting more respect than he ever has. But TL and I do all these lists on the show. We'll go to different groups that put their best of this Elvis and that Elvis, and we'll pick it apart. As fans, we'll say that's they forgot this But even Rolling Stone magazine, up until his death, was really hard on Elvis.
They're usually bad. Yeah.
And you know what really kind of gets under my skin as an Elvis fan, and this is me talking as an Elvis fan. They talk about Jim Morrison, what a Greek god he was.
Well,
you know what? He put on some weight and grew a beard. You don't talk about that.
Right.
You don't.
He looks like a hobo there at the end.
Yeah. And so they always want to talk it on Elvis. But again, and Jim Morrison was a sex symbol, right, at that time, and very popular, but I mean, the same thing happened to him.
Well, on our show last week, Bill, we were talking about we just started a YouTube page, and we hear from different people. They make comments, and a lot of people are stuck on the 50s Elvis, and we're going to put in a video out about this soon, where they wanted Elvis to stay with the black greasy hair and sideburns and holding the guitar and shaking. They didn't like the Elvis's Back album, or they don't like the Hawaiian concert or any of that. They wanted Elvis, and Elvis evolved. I mean, and I said the Beatles went from I Want to Hold Your Hand to Yellow Submarine. They were allowed to evolve and do their thing, but Elvis gets a lot of grief from some of these groups saying, he should have stayed in the blue jeans, and
yeah. So I saw the interviews with George Harrison and the remaining Beatles, and they was referring to I think it was Madison Square Garden, and I guess they saw him backstage prior to the show, and George Harrison was commenting how he was dressed, and he had all these, he was all bejeweled and like that, and then he had a big orchestra with him and this and that, and he was like, I think Harrison said something along the lines, I felt sorry for him. It's like, man, why don't you put on the leather jacket and the blue jeans and go back to what it what it was. Well, my response to George Harrison is, you know what? I remember your Sgt. Pepper outfits. I remember your bad movies.
Right.
Much worse than Elvis's. And I never seen you go back to the pictures we saw of you in the 50s with your hair slicked back and your leather jacket and blue jeans. So why are you knocking on Elvis for that? I think that even in the real world of musicians, it's easy for them to cast stones, right? But you shouldn't cast stones when you live in a glass house,
right? Exactly.
And so and I'm a Beatles fan, but when I hear stuff like that, it kind of makes me like, oh wow. You try not to think of them on a personal level. You're just better off listening to the records if you like the Beatles and not dig into who they are. I'll tell you. So one of my first rock concerts was in 1979. My brother took me to see Kiss. So I saw Kiss in 1979, and I remember at the end of the show, Paul Stanley said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dedicate this next song to the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. And it was their last song. And they did Rock and Roll All Night. So I thought, wow, how cool is that?
That is cool.
That a band like that recognized Elvis. And I agree with you, going back to what you were saying before. I think that Elvis himself, and it's obvious when you look at the footage, when you listen to the live albums, and especially the footage that we can see now on YouTube and watch it, Elvis was tired of singing Hound Dog. He was tired of singing Don't Be Cruel and all that. Those are songs he did back in the 50s. Yeah. And now he's in the mid 70s, and people still want to hear it.
Right.
And I don't believe Elvis is the only victim of it. I think that a lot of fans don't allow the artist to grow. Mm-hmm. They don't want to hear And I'll tell you, I'm a little bit guilty of this myself. I went and seen Steppenwolf. This was years back. Steppenwolf, who did, Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride. So I went to see them, and I sat there for almost an hour and never heard one song I was familiar with.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to hear, Born to Be Wild. I
Yeah.
wanted to hear Magic
Yeah.
Carpet Ride. But hour into the show, I didn't hear anything I recognized, so I left. But
Yeah,
but I think fans, especially the fans that were there in the beginning with Elvis, they still want to hear those songs.
Sure.
And but when an artist feels trapped, okay, in a certain era, then all of a sudden they start feeling like, well, I'm just an oldies act.
Right.
I'm an oldies act. And I think Elvis felt like that.
Well, that works into one of my questions I was going to ask you about, Bill, because the Elvis fans are getting younger. We're getting younger fans now. And do you think the ETA shows will stay like they are? Do you think they're going to change? Will you ever change? Or will some of the up-and-comers change the way they're doing these shows? Or will they always come out to 2001 and end it with Can't Help Falling in Love? Or will they do something different? Where do you see it going?
Well, myself, it's really hard to say. I see a lot of the newcomers. Although there are, I have seen young guys that are still doing Elvis Presley. I've seen newcomers doing Austin Butler.
Yeah.
And I've seen newcomers doing other ETAs.
Really?
And
we see it too.
So,
I know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Elvis's gyrations were not choreographed. He shook to the music. He said it was nerves. But I mean, some of it, I'm sure it was. Some of it was like just having fun.
I think he learned a little how to play with the audience after a while.
Yeah.
Most definitely. At first, he didn't know what he did, but then when he realized it, then he started playing with that. But Elvis, I believe, was never intentionally vulgar.
No.
Elvis just moved around and gyrated on stage. Of course, you're going back in time, and back then they said that was vulgar, and it's the devil's music and blah blah blah. And but I think okay, I mean let's face it, the tribute artists and the Elvis thing has been going on longer than Elvis has walked the earth himself.
Yeah.
Right. Everything has a time. Right, birth, and then you bloom, and then and then it dies. Everything has its moment in time, and I think that the younger generation that is getting into it now, I'm not so sure that they will spend the dime support the types of shows that they're going to now.
Right.
When they come with mom and dad, when they come with grandma, grandpa, that's all great. But when it starts to come out of their pocket, I'm not sure if there will be enough of them that will support the ETA movement.
Never thought of that.
And so it's really hard to say. If it evolves, if it continues evolving away from what Elvis really was, well, then you're really not supporting Elvis at all, are you?
Yeah.
No.
In my opinion, Elvis Presley will always be, no matter what they do, whether ETAs come and go or the whole scene stops, comes to a halt, Elvis will always be. Because he is Elvis.
You're right.
Absolutely.
Well said.
He is Elvis.